Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, and we are continuing our build of the Estes Black Brant II. Since the last video, everything is dried, and we are ready to more or less finish construction. Let's double check my alignment here. It's a little late to fix anything, but honestly, I mean, it looks pretty passable. Once you get it centered, anyway. So, it looks pretty good. The last few things we need to do are, well, some of them are structural, and that's mostly attaching the launch lug and putting our glue fillets on for the fins to strengthen things up there. So we'll start with that, and then we have one other construction task to do. This particular rocket uses a 3/16 launch lug and therefore launch rod, which is nice. I mean, you could probably get away with this rocket being smaller and less powerful, but it's nice to have. We do need to cut this launch lug in half. Well, actually not quite in half, so I do need to break out my ruler. And it turns out that we want, according to the instructions, 1/2 inch sections of this launch lug. So, honestly, you probably could just chop this in half, but we'll follow the instructions, just because it seems like a good plan. It's 2 inches long, so I'm going to put a line here at 1 inch, and another one here at 1/2 inch, and I'm going to break out my scissors. The instructions say to use a hobby knife. I don't generally use a hobby knife for this, for a variety of reasons. Scissors are easier. The only real problem with the scissors is that you will deform the tube in doing this, and you do need to make sure that you're cutting it straight. So, and probably the piece is going to go flying. Fortunately, it didn't go very far. Didn't lose it. So do your best to keep this a straight cut. And this is excess. It's not worth hanging on to, although I suppose you could if you really, really wanted to. It's big enough to do this twice. I'm going to try to reshape these a little bit, just with my hands. And if you do, so I have a little bit of, some of the tube came off there a little bit. You might consider sanding this. I don't think I'm going to. Well, maybe there's a little bit of a burr there. So just a little bit of, a couple passes on the sandpaper probably will take care of business. Or it might make it a little bit worse. I'm going to break out my hobby knife here and see if I can't just kind of encourage that little bit to leave. There we go. That's better. Just be careful using the hobby knife. Alright, so those are the launch lugs. They're probably good enough. They need to be attached. Now, I already drew the line on here earlier. One is going to go in front of, that would be toward the nose cone, this line that we drew, and the other one is going to go back, all the way back here, which is actually kind of a problem because I didn't extend the line long enough. Well, I don't, ultimately the longer and the farther back the launch lug is, the better for stability. You get more time on the rod under control. I suspect this rocket probably doesn't need a whole lot of excess time on the launch rod, especially because this thing's designed to use 24mm motors. This thing's going to get moving pretty quickly before it leaves the launch rod, because they've got a good amount of kick to them. I suspect you could probably fly this off of a B6 as well, although I can't, I should probably look at the data on that before you try it. Alright, I'm going to get these on quickly here, and then I'm going to worry about lining them up, because they need to line up internally with each other. That is the downside to using two launch lugs. It does give you more stability, but you do actually need to attach them well. So, you know, if you've attached them and they are not on the line, well, then it kind of defeats the entire purpose. And I am, unfortunately, I probably should have taken the time to extend this line. I thought I actually had extended this the whole way back, but I guess not. I'm centering it off of the transition to the plastic here, so that's at least something to look for. And I'm just going to try to adjust it so that it appears to be in line with the line that I drew, and you know, it's passable right now. The test though is I'm going to look down the barrel. I'm going to look down the barrel and make sure that I can see clearly through both of the lugs, which, you know, looks pretty good. I'm going to try it the other direction too, just to make sure that I don't have any biases into it. It looks pretty straight, so I am reasonably satisfied with that. There's still some deformities. I'm going to have to clean up these launch lugs before I actually fly them. I found I do like the 3/16 rod. It's nice, it's more stable. There are a lot of benefits to using it, but it seems to be a little more snug with the 3/16 lugs. So you don't want to have any paint in the lug. You don't want to have, you know, there are a lot of things you don't want to have in there. So that would include deformities from the lug itself when I cut them out. Alright, so I'm going to carefully avoid them. In fact, I'm going to turn this upside down, ironically, because that's going to be about as shielded as it can get. And I'm going to put a quick set of fillets on this. Now, I'm not going to do the underside. I need to do that later because I want to do here and the two launch lugs. But I'm not going to put a fillet on them while they're still drying. You know, what am I going to do about this? So the fillet isn't going to really attach here. It's not going to bond well, but I'm not trying to bond. You know, I'm not really interested in strengthening this joint all that much. I mean, that is part of the point of a fillet, but the other part is aerodynamics and just to make it look nice. So I am going to put the glue over top of the plastic, even knowing that it's not going to bond in any meaningful manner, but it is going to kind of fill in any gaps that are there. And I'm going to get a smoother transition, which will improve the aerodynamics. Alright, so that should be pretty good. You'll also notice that I tried to avoid the gap in here. I didn't put any glue right there. I'm going to end up smearing glue in there. It seems kind of unavoidable. I guess I can try using my finger to smooth away from the gap. That's an option. Yeah, we can do that. I actually have to smooth back this way because the way I was brushing it, it left a decent sized gap in the glue for whatever reason. I might not have been very consistent like this one. I'm going to have to brush back a little bit because I had it beaded up a bit there. I am dabbing my gluey finger off on a paper towel after I make each little swipe here. Because I don't need to accidentally touch anything and get blurky glue all over the place. Alright. Yeah, so there is going to be this gap in between there where the plastic transition is, but that's probably a good thing. That'll be fine. Alright, so this is going to go out of the way, it's going to rest, it's going to dry, and like an hour or so I'll flip it over and put fillets on the remaining fin joints and on the launch lug. But in the intervening time, I do have a last stage here of construction to do, and that's dealing with this nose cone. Remember, we added this extra bit right here because there are some decorative little doodads that need to go on here. And by doodads, what I really mean, these things look like toothpicks, or like you're going to put them in a cocktail or something. I'm sure that these are replicas of some science experiment that this particular rocket was designed to carry out, but I don't know. They look suspiciously like toothpicks. Anyway, they're going to get attached in here, and there is a template here that we're going to use to figure out where everything is going to go. So I do need a little bit of tape. This is going to be attached just like the fin attachment templates are. So I got a piece of masking tape here. Tear it in half because I didn't need that much. And actually I'll put it this way. And this needs to get aligned to the bottom down here. So this, usually we're doing this to get the fins right, so we use it for drawing purposes. But this time, we actually only really care about these little hole marks. So, yeah. All right, to make sure it's straight, these little lines should be lined up with each other. If they're not, then adjust things until they are. Doesn't quite make, for whatever reason, the gap is not quite closed there, but it's pretty close. So we'll call that good enough. All right, now the entire point of this thing is that we're gonna punch holes into this tube right where the little hole marks are. And in order to do that, let's get these out of the way momentarily. In order to do that, we're going to use the hobby knife. I probably should be wearing the glove, but this is not, I'm not cutting anything. I'm certainly not cutting anything hard. So all I'm going to do is, and hopefully we've got a pretty sharp new hobby knife blade in here, because especially if you've already, like, I tend to notch the tips of these from time to time. I don't know why, it just seems to happen. It's probably because these aren't the world's best hobby knife blades, but anyway, I'm going to put the blade in right at the central mark, and then I'm just going to kind of spin it around, and I can see already that I've moved a little bit, so I'm going to try to recenter that. Anyway, so I'm just kind of like drilling a hole in here with the hobby knife blade. You can spin it back and forth if you want. It's a decent option sometimes. Just mind the blade, of course. Okay, let's do a little test fit here. So the entire purpose is this thing needs to fit in the hole. Once it's big enough for the toothpick to fit, then we can stop, and it's not quite big enough yet. So back in and drill out a little more. I would say go slowly here because you don't want it to be bigger, like wildly bigger than the hole. It's getting close, but not quite. Try to drill the hole evenly. Okay. See how that is. Do be careful with these two, because these things are really flimsy. Honestly, I've said it before, I don't know how on earth this is going to survive landing in a field. Even under a parachute, I don't know. I don't have any real, I don't have any high hopes for the durability of that. Alright. Probably when I'm done here, this should be sanded off. And don't forget too to take this off, because you don't want to leave a taped on piece of paper on your rocket, especially since we're getting close to finishing. Alright, I'm not making as much progress on this as I would like, for whatever reason. I can't say I know why, but I mean it looks pretty good, but a little dowel toothpick is not fitting just quite yet. So again, I would rather go slowly here than quickly. I don't want a huge gaping hole. Although honestly, I mean this thing looks like it's big enough right now, but there we go. Okay. All right. So now this is kind of confusing. So I followed this, right? So I did punch these in the right place. The instructions seem to think that this is going to, here, look, that it's going to hit the plastic bit here, but it is clearly not. That is interesting and rather annoying, and I'm not entirely sure what to do about that. It is, well, it's just not gonna go where it's supposed to go, I guess. Now I could, try this again, but I've already punched a hole in it, and I guess I'm just gonna have to deal with it. And I can't like angle it far enough so that it would connect to the plastic. So that is kind of a question mark. Anyway, the other thing that I need to do according to the instructions are the toothpick parts are only supposed to be 2 inches long as well. So yeah, I guess I might as well just kind of chop them off. I mean, I'll measure it, and then we'll just try gluing these things in place. So we'll do need the ruler again. And I want 2 inches from the pointy tip, which is right here. Okay. I guess I'm just going to kind of push them in, and after I chop this bit off. Now, speaking of which, so you could use the hobby knife blade here. I find cutting through any kind of dowel, even if it's a toothpick like this, irritating to do with the hobby knife. So I'm going to go again with the scissors. If you have strong enough scissors, you should be able to cut through it pretty easily. And that's a pretty smooth cut. If it wasn't, break out your sandpaper and sand it off. So that's it. The only thing I can think of is that I could try to get them to come together at a point. Just all 3 of them in here come together at a point, but I don't know. That's going to be difficult to do. I'm surprised, let's say, that they don't end up intersecting with the plastic, the nose cone, the end of the nose cone down here, but okay. I mean, I guess it doesn't have to. So, well, let's glue it. The instructions say that I'm supposed to be using plastic cement here, which, as I assume, because it's supposed to touch the plastic inside, but since it's not, I can probably just get away with a bit of wood glue. So let's do that. The wood glue will at least be easier to use. I'm just going to put, well, actually, you know what? I can't glue this yet because I would be gluing it onto this piece of paper. So, okay, well, while it is a rather uninteresting process, I'm going to continue drilling these holes, and once they're all drilled, then I'll glue everything in, I guess. There's no reason to watch me punch these holes again because it's the exact same process. The only downside is you're not going to get to see me finish the nose cone. But I do need to do that. I guess that'll have to wait for the next video. Alright, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you then.